Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 9 is finally here. We're past the midway mark in the NFL, and I've got a DraftKings first look for you for NFL DFS in Week 9. We're going to take a look at every single position. We're going to look at some quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, that probably going to have to go with a cheap tight end with the way that DraftKings has priced things this week. I don't know that we can really reach up to the top at tight end like we have been for the first half of the season, at least on the salaries. Because they finally, and they've done this the last couple of years, they finally priced up those running backs to the point where we might have to take a team jam them in approach to first look this week. So if you'd be so kind, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, make sure that you ring that notifications bell, because I've got at least one, usually 2 videos that come out during overlap season, NBA and NFL. And I don't want you to miss any of them. So ring that notifications bell so that you can be a part of that notifications gang. And every one of these videos is recorded live on Twitch. There's going to be a link down below in the description, as well as every other one of my social media outlets. Go drop a follow there. I'd love to meet you. Come by and say hi on Twitch. Much easier for me to get to know you guys there, because I spend more time bantering than I do here in the comments section on YouTube. So I want you to leave me a comment down below and let me know, do you think 10K is too much to pay for Christian McCaffrey? Because right now, he's been way priced up. We're talking about 10K for what might be the most matchup-proof running back that we have in the league, due to the amount of volume that he gets, in terms of touches on his team. Even in a blowout against San Francisco, the spot everybody wanted to fade him at San Francisco, can't play McCaffrey. They're really great on defense. He still comes through with a 30.5 point day. He has been held under 20 fantasy points once this year, and that was 2 months ago, way back in week 2. Now, with a better quarterback, assumedly, I'm going to say that Cam Newton's a better quarterback and should be under center moving forward for the second half of the season. Christian McCaffrey presents a really, really difficult strategy situation for your cash game builds and even for your tournament builds. Is there going to be enough value on this slate? And it is the time of the season when value does kind of open up throughout the week. We saw it last week with Alvin Kamara was supposed to play and then he was out. I assume that's because the bye week was coming for them. They give him 2 weeks of rest, and Latavius Murray becomes the absolute smash value play, and everybody had him. Maybe we'll get another situation like that this week. It's also trade deadline week, so we're already seeing some trades and players moving around. There could be other value that opens up if players move off the slate. So let's see what quarterbacks we have and see if we can afford them. Russ Wilson has the cherry matchup going up against Tampa Bay, who has given up a ton of points to quarterbacks and wide receivers and tight ends. It does not matter how you throw the ball against them. You will probably be extremely efficient doing it, but they don't let him throw the ball all that much. This game does have one of the highest totals on the day. If we get 35 to 45 throw Russ, we will have probably see him achieve value at this salary and have a high 20s, if not a 30-point fantasy day. If we get 20 to 25 throw Russ, it becomes much more difficult because of this big old 20 burger that he put up, in attempts last week, mostly because they were up 24-0 at halftime, even though this game got much closer in the second half than it seemed it was going to be an absolute rout. But they took their feet off the gas and started just trying to deflate the ball and run it a ton. It's always going to be a danger with the way that Seattle runs their offense when you play Russ Wilson, and paying up for him in cash seems like it might be difficult. Pat Mahomes may be back this week in a high total game. We'll see. We don't know yet, but always, if Patrick Mahomes is in there with the weapons that they have on offense, and everybody is healthy right now, so much speed. We saw that with Green Bay this week. Green Bay had to basically score a ton of points just to stay ahead of a Matt Moore run offense, because they have everybody healthy right now between Kelsey and Hill and Hardman and Robinson and Watkins and all the running backs that they have there. Very, very difficult to outscore them when they have Patrick Mahomes, and Green Bay barely did it with Moore at the helm. Aaron Rodgers against the Chargers, probably not all that interested. We do like to stream quarterbacks against the Raiders, but Matthew Stafford, $700 more than he was last week, a 10% price hike for him. Prices are up across the board. Detroit throwing the ball a ton more this season they were in past seasons, and DraftKings does match up salaries with the players' teams that they're matched up with. So Oakland really bad against opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers. Therefore, Matthew Stafford and some of his pass catches have been really jacked up in their price this week. So it's tough to warrant him outside of cash, considering that there are other guys that are a little bit cheaper on the board. Jameis Winston going up against Seattle. Jameis Winston may not be a great real life quarterback right now with as many interceptions as he throws and as many fumbles as he gets. But I'm not playing real life football. I don't care about wins on the football field. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about the fact that he just keeps piling up yards and is essentially doing it to 2 pass catchers, which makes him a great player for us in daily fantasy because we can easily pair him with 1, Mike Evans, 2, Godwin, or 3, both of them in the same lineup, and have some expectation of a ceiling game, a higher percentage of a ceiling game from either one of those guys, whether they're winning and playing from ahead or whether they're playing from behind and playing catch up. Jameis Winston stacks are extremely viable and have been all season long. Sam Darnold is priced up to 5,900 only because he's playing Miami. He has not been good thus far this year outside of the one game against Dallas. I was not expecting this price hike, but as I said, prices up across the board, not quite a 10% raise, but going from 55 to 59 following a 15-point day, this is a tough spot. I wanted to try and play Darnold this week. I'm sure that DraftKings knew a lot of people wanted to try and play Darnold this week coming into it, looking at the schedule before salaries came out. But now we're in a spot where he's priced very difficultly for me to get to. Jacoby Brissett, 10 points last week, 30 the week before. 11 points the week before that, 23 the week before that. Typically, they throw the ball this year more at home on first and second down than you do on the road. And against Pittsburgh, I could see them going the same route, trying to just pound the ball with Marlon Mack and control the clock and slow the game down and give themselves the best chance to win, because that is the best chance that they have to win road games this year, is to reduce the amount of plays that your opponents get. Brissett is intriguing to me at 5,600, but not really a core play. However, as dangerous as this feels, and here's Jesse Pinkman coming in his El Camino for us at 5,500. Paid off last week. People were not real excited to play him. Again, price came up 10% from 5,000 to 5,500. Still a really good matchup against Detroit. This looks like another great spot for him if he can get you 20 fantasy points, right? And that's well above his average of 15 on the year. But against teams where he kind of has to throw and gets a little bit of soft matchups, and we may see a situation where one of the cornerbacks on Detroit gets traded before the deadline. We'll have to wait and see about that. As long as he's got Waller and as long as he's got Terrell Williams, as well as the good pass catching backs that they have on this team with Jacobs and Richard, I think that he's an extremely viable option at 5,500, and that's where I'm going to go for value on this slate. As I said before, Christian McCaffrey is 10K, and he's going to get 25 touches, a floor of 4 catches, maybe possibly 6, 7, 8 catches. I actually like him more with Cam Newton there. Most people say, well, if Cam Newton's there, he's going to throw the ball downfield. When Cam Newton's there, he just throws the ball to Christian McCaffrey. And I have an assumption that the offense runs better with Cam Newton than it does with Kyle Allen. I'm going to go real far out on that limb. Kyle Allen did fine as a backup, but he is right now in his career a backup, and Cam Newton is a viable fantasy starter for us. I believe he was only 5,800. Somebody we're going to have to consider if he's playing this week. I kind of might want to go a certain route, but let's look at the rest of the running backs real quick. Dalvin Cook, 9,500. He's done nothing but produce every single week. Another guy who has seen a drastic price rise from 8,700, 8,000 2 weeks ago up to 9,500 now. We're in the team jam him in portion of the year when DraftKings really makes the pricing a little bit tougher. Le'Veon Bell in a fantastic matchup against Miami, but we have seen 2 kind of stinker weeks from Le'Veon Bell with 4 catches over 2 weeks, and now we saw his price come way up 1,700 from where it was 2 weeks ago after 2 sub 10-point weeks. DraftKings has really ratcheted up the pricing and made it very, very difficult to make lineups this week, which kind of makes me want to go stars and scrubs. Nick Chubb against Denver. Again, we're getting nothing but 20 touches out of Nick Chubb. He's a massive part of this offense. You can get that peak volume, that bell cow usage from a guy at 7,300. Definitely in consideration, but I might want to meme on this first look. Chris Carson's an interesting play for me only because Tampa Bay is so good against running backs. You know they're going to try and jam the ball to him 20 times. I just don't know how effective he can be doing that. And he doesn't have the usage in the passing game to really be the guy that I want to pay that tag for. If I'm paying 72 or 73, it's probably going to be for Nick Chubb. I think Seattle's team does better through the air than on the ground this week. Aaron Jones, clearly in a timeshare situation, but also clearly doing a great job of having a lot of fantasy points through the air, giving him a ridiculously good floor with 22 catches over the past 4 games, even with Jamal Williams back. 7,000. I think I prefer him to Chris Carson as well in that price range, but there is risk based on just that. Detroit has been really bad against running backs, and you know that the Raiders want to stuff the ball into Josh Jacobs' hands as much as they possibly can. He's got a really good floor, but again, price way up, 6,500. I don't know that there's an awful lot of great value plays on this slate. Talked about Jamal Williams. A backup being priced at 5,900 to me seems absurd, considering that he has 4 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks, something that is not going to be sustainable with that sort of usage, and an Aaron Jones playing in front of him who's getting the majority of the carries and the majority of the targets. It's not even like Jamal Williams is the passing down back like a James White in New England. He's just the backup guy getting the 40% of the 60-40 share between these two guys, and the 40% apparently is worth 5,900 this week. Now we're getting into value territory. Derrick Henry, 5,700 going up against Carolina does not help you in the passing game. Has to get it done on the ground and the goal line. Phillip Lindsay definitely will help you in the passing game. Isn't going to get you 20 carries, but a very good possibility of 15 plus with 4 of them coming through the air. Howard with a good matchup. Madison, probably not going to play him in reserve and backup. Melvin Gordon, I just want him to get traded at this point. If he gets traded, obviously Austin Eckler becomes a really good play. We want to stream running backs against Green Bay. We've wanted to do that all season long. But with them kind of splitting the touches and splitting the carries and not really knowing where anything's going, and neither one of them getting enough to really eat and being priced where they're at, to me, both become kind of a fade, and maybe Eckler only as a tournament play. Freeman is very interesting based on the volume that he gets and the goal line work. And Denver, I believe Flacco is just named out, or at least questionable, before we started recording this first look. Freeman becomes interesting for me at 4,900 if you're looking for value. And Kenyon Drake was just traded this morning, opening up a ton of snaps and a ton of usage for them to get an extended look at one Mark Walton. Walton has been getting a lot more carries as the weeks have gone on, a lot more touches as the weeks have gone on. He can play in the passing game. That's a boon for us here on DraftKings. He should get 15 carries. He should get 2, 3, 4 targets as well in the pass game, and actually gets a good matchup at home against the New York Jets. We need value, guys. And far be it from me to turn up my nose at somebody just because he plays for the Miami Dolphins. It's not like the Jets have done a great job with the injuries that they've had along their front seven at stopping opposing running backs. I'm going to plug Mark Walton, and I'm going to play on Team Jam him in this week and just stuff in both of these dudes. Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, give me all the volume. I believe that we can get those 70 touches with this trio between Walton, McCaffrey, and Cook. We're going to have to find the value. As always, here comes that 3K defense. Randomly, Eagles, good, great, fine, whatever. We will work on defense as the week goes on, as we see offensive line injuries, as we find out more about who is in and who is out and which teams are going to be struggling based on injuries. We'll pay much more attention to that by the time Best Buys comes out on Thursday, and all the podcasts that I do, the ESPN Fantasy Focus 06010 DFS pod, which comes out Thursday, and the Daily Fantasy Edge podcast, which comes out Thursday. We'll have a much better grasp on which defenses look like they're in better shape. Then, for the sake of just saving time, we're picking that 3K defense. Let's go to tight end so we can see what we can do at wide receiver. I don't think that we're going to be able to afford an expensive tight end with this 4,300 that we've spent already. So guys like Kelsey, who I always think is a good play, even against a team like Minnesota, probably not in play for this lineup. Darren Waller, who has seen great volume every single week, 6, 7, 8 targets basically every single week, now gets Detroit. Good bounce back spot for him, though the price is up. I feel like a parrot just saying that on every single player. Hunter Henry, though the price is up, 1,100 going up against Green Bay. At 6K, I think that he's an easy cash game fade. Zach Ertz at 4,700, lowest price we've seen on Zach Ertz in basically years. Not getting anywhere close to the volume that he used to get, and getting not vultured, but they're playing a lot more 2 tight end in Philly this year than they have before. Now we're getting into the range of players that I think that we can start to target. Chris Herndon, if he makes his return, you just watched the tight end do really well in this offense. We've seen Sam Darnold use Chris Herndon last year, and He has downfield threat at 4K, catching a 20-yard ball in multiple games last season. Coming off that suspension, coming off of that injury, if he's in at 4K, I believe that he is a very playable player. Jonnu Smith absolutely smashed last week at 2,800, but his salary has come up to 3,800 this week. If Delaney Walker's out, I still think he's in play, but he's a little more thin at 3,800 than he was at 2,800. Greg Olsen at 3,500 against Tennessee. It is a slower game. And Greg Olsen with Cam Newton back, I believe, is a better play than Greg Olsen with Kyle Allen. He's in consideration at 3.5, but I think we got guys down in this range. Guys like Dallas Goedert. A couple of good games back to back, though touchdown dependent in both of those games. But at 3K, we don't need him to have a 15-point game for us. It's just kind of icing on the cake. If he can get us between, I don't know, 7 and 11 points, we should be fine at 3,100 here. Same thing goes for Jack Doyle. We should be fine at 8 to 11 points here at 3K. We should be fine with Noah Fant, even though he has not been great this year. If we get 8 to 11 points out of him at 3K, in a somewhat good matchup against Cleveland, with him running over 70% of routes, he's just been extremely inconsistent and dropping balls and not running good routes. For me, I want to attack this this spot right here. Obviously, Seattle's been a team that we've looked to attack with tight ends all year, but I'm not really assured that Cam Brate is going to be as targeted as these other two guys. So in this price range, I would prefer Doyle and Goddard. I'm going to lean towards Goddard right now with the role that he has, but I'm fine with Doyle in that spot as well. It does not bother me either way if you want to go with one or the other. Or if you want to play Fant, I think he's the longest shot of that quad, and then maybe Brate in third place out of those four guys. So going to wide receiver, need to find value again. Anthony Miller got there, though he was a little bit lucky to get there on only 3 targets this week. The last 3 weeks, though, 19 targets. If he sees that same sort of volume this week against Philadelphia, who we definitely like to attack their cornerbacks with wide receivers. In fantasy, they've been that bad for 2 or 3 years now. This is how we attack them. Anthony Miller opens up at least a little bit of value for me at wideout and gives me 5,300 left to spend. And let's kind of look at what else is there. Lazard at 3,900, 5 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. Definitely has the respect of his quarterback, but I don't think there's much big playability here. He's a very big-bodied, slow wide receiver. I do feel that he will get the balls thrown his way, but if Devontae Adams comes back, he's basically just a wait and see for me and totally dependent on the other player being out. A lot of people are going to probably ask about Demaryius Thomas this week with the volume that he's got. I personally just don't see it. Olabisi Johnson, just 2 targets in the absence of Thielen. I think that if Thielen comes back, he is completely off the table for us. Robinson at 4K. If Mahomes is back, I think is worth a tournament dart throw, but he's not somebody who's going to see a lot of volume. Hunter Renfrow saw a good amount of volume last week in 4 targets, but at 4,100, you're paying $1,000 a target. Not exactly where I want to spend my money. Hardman getting a good amount of usage, but some of it is just, around the line of scrimmage. They're trying to create ways to get the ball to him in space, but he's not getting that usage that we want. These guys in this Chiefs offense are priced way up, with the exception of somebody like Sammy Watkins, who is getting a really great amount of volume, is only 800 more because maybe he's not as flashy as Robinson earlier in the season with the big game that he had and the exciting catches that he had in the end zone. And Hardman, who is an electric athlete. I think that Watkins at 4,900 is probably the better play of those 3 Chiefs wideouts in this 4K to 5K range. I also think that there's a couple of plays here in the mid. Curtis Samuel, bunch of targets for him. And we still haven't seen a big breakout game from him. I believe that it's going to be coming as soon as this offense gets a little bit more on track. Devontae Parker, probably not interested. I do really like Jarvis Landry in this spot. Yes, it's a tough matchup against Denver, but he won't be drawing Harris, as he's probably going to be on Odell Beckham Jr. And the volume for the price is just too good. He is still a very talented wide receiver. He can get downfield, 20+ yard catch in each of the last 4 games. 10 targets in 2 of those 4 games. For 4,500, I think that this is our best floor/ceiling option. So I'm going to plug him in. Mike Williams still comes in as a good play for me at 4,600, even though the price is up 15% from where it was last week. That leaves us 6,200 that we can spend on a wide receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster at 63 if we want. Keenan Allen just above if you want to come down on this defense as well. T.Y. Hilton at 65. McLaurin against Buffalo, not really a place that I want to attack. I don't really play players against Buffalo, not really what I do. John Brown going against Washington is something that I do a lot. 6,100, I do like to attack that defense. Terrell Williams, all he does apparently this year is catch touchdowns. So for the memes and for the brand, I'm going to go with Tyrell the Gazelle for my last spot. Derek Carr, Walton, McCaffrey, Andrew Miller, Landry, Tyrell the Gazelle Williams, Goddard, Cook, and the Eagles defense. I've got my 70 touches. I've got my my stacked quarterback with my brand wide receiver, as well as 2 value plays that I think are going to get enough targets for the price to get us home. That's going to do it for First Look. Thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notifications bell, and we'll be back with another video tomorrow. Until then, bye.
He's a legend.